Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I figured I'd upload another video kind of following up with my normal map bake video. And today I'm going to show you how to bake what I think are the best ambient occlusion maps that you can possibly bake. Outside of any plugins you probably got to pay a few $100s for or something else, from what I can do right out of 3ds Max, I get the best results. So I'll figure I'll show you how to do it. I may not actually all set this up and continue the render, but I will start it, and then I'm gonna stop that, continue the video afterwards, and show you the one that I have already baked. Now this is the highest quality that I got, except for a few mistakes on it, but I realized what it was. I fixed it, but for the sake of the tutorial, it will do just fine. So let me set this up. Alright, so I have this here already, but I want to show you how I set it up prior to baking it. So you want to go to render setup, and you want to make sure you go into common first. That's something I get used to. First you want to make sure you have your assign renderer clicked on NVIDIA Mental Ray. Now when I go in the list, it's not going to show it because it's already on here, but normally when this is selected, this would pop up in its place somewhere down here. So I already got this selected. This is what I'm using. You don't need a cage or anything like that to do this. So once you get that selected, I go down here because by default it's just custom. I go to HD video, HD TV video right here. It automatically sets this up. So you got that. Again, the quality here by default is 0.75, I believe, or 0.25. I just bumped it up to 20, the max, and this is like 1 to 4, so I bumped this up to 64. It could be 128 if you want, but sometimes it takes forever and it might cause a little bit more noise than you want. I know there's a noise filter option somewhere, so if I run into it I'll explain it. Right now, global illumination I have on high. It usually is like down here or something like that, but I want it to look better. You can go up to very high, but again, it's going to take a while. It will go from 500 rays to 10,000, so you know, get the picture. Now that's like ray tracing stuff. So if you've ever seen like that tech demo with Star Wars and Unreal 4, that's real time. That was a $150,000 system that pulled that off, and that's basically doing what these programs were meant to do from their inception. For movies like Pixar, or like, you know, movies you see now, they use Maya and 3ds Max, and you know, like Infinity Wars and all that use all these programs in conjunction. But that tech demo was showing you something that has never really been done before, as far as I know, in that quality. And what it was is ray tracing. And usually you have to render a still scene with that, and it takes forever. And if you know anybody that knows anything about this, they know how long it takes to get a few frames in a movie like that done. So they probably send it to render farms, which are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of computers, you know, somewhere where they just use these to render CGI like that. So you can get the picture of how cool that actually is to see that in real time. But this is basically when you bake, you're putting all the render under a ray tracing method of some sort. So right here we got all that set up. I have that to 20 again, 64. I think what we need to do now is go into render to texture. It's already open, but I'll reopen it. And so we'll come down to here. You want to make sure that, well, for when you have your model selected, and right there we don't want that messing with anything, so keep this on channel 1. You do want to make sure you kind of have this mapped out. I already did this by hand because certain things were not working when I did the automatic one, or even when I used other tools, so I just did it by hand. And so what I'm doing is using channel 1. That's where I did the UVs, and this is what's going to happen. It's basically going to bake that as a texture, but it's going to use that set of UVs. So when you bring it into Photoshop or anything like that, as long as you use the texture that is set up already, it will remember that. So you'll be able to put this right over another layer and complete the task. So again, you can bring this up to 128 as well. You could up the spread. I usually put it up to 1. So you want better quality, it's going to take longer time, but again, higher the quality, you could always bog it down later, but if you make it low quality now and try to do the same thing, it's going to look like crap. So that's all set. So basically what we would do is click on render. So that's what I'll do right now to kind of just show you the beginning of it, and then I'm going to stop the video and continue on with what I was going to show you. This may show up. This may say this, so it's fine, but if it doesn't finish, it's not going to save it. So right now it's starting all that. This doesn't necessarily always look like what your AO is going to actually be. So when your bait comes out, it's going to look way better than this. This is just one of those things in 3ds Max where I think it's just a visual glitch. It doesn't necessarily always show you the right outcome. So I'm going to have to kind of get through that. But anyway, I'm going to cancel this and continue on. Now I've already baked this with the highest settings. Now it only has a few errors because I realized an issue happened with the model. Again, you want to make sure you always have that selected and never have this selected, so we'll just go there. I had to fix it, but I didn't have time to bake another AO. That was going to take about 2.5 hours, and that's how high quality it was. So my computer's pretty strong, but it's still going to take a while to do something that big. So like I said, under here, make sure you know where you're saving it to. So you want to put it on your desktop or something so you can get to it quick, that's fine, or put it in a folder, which I would always advise. Have your setup ready. And now what we want to do is show you what happens. So this is already applied, and you want to make sure that show shaded material and viewport is clicked, and you want to make sure this is shaded, because if you have this realistic, like, you're going to see shadows and you're going to think, oh, well, what the hell's going on? You don't want that, so you want to go to shaded. And so as you can see, the model itself has nothing on it. It's just a plain old model. I modeled it after a few texture ideas, and I'm going to apply them later, but this is what it's going to look like with the ambient occlusion. Now, like I said, there's a few errors on the side here. I got to fix that, and over here. But for the most part, you get the idea. Bakes in the artificial feeling that you have lighting going underneath, and it doesn't always reach all these points, so it gets darker, obviously, you know. When you have that in a scene properly, you're ready to go. So we have that all set up. Another thing I kind of wanted to show you in Photoshop here is this is the texture that I was going to use. Now obviously it's kind of low quality, but there's going to be so many of these it's not really going to matter from the height that the player is going to see it. I do have a higher quality, but for the sake of this tutorial. So right now I have this set up, and I have my UV set up so they basically match the walls, go around this. You know, these things are set up to have their own texture. The window does too. And the ambient occlusion bake that I did is following the model's form, so as long as this is set up properly, it's going to work with this texture, it's going to fit with it. So that's why this is going to work. So this is the normal texture, and this is what it's going to look like with it on there. You can see a little bit of a darker outside here and then inside here. Now you could always mess around with this, and if you don't like something, you could probably even paint it in, believe it or not. What I did to get this to actually work over this without doing this, as you can see, this is what it looks like in Photoshop. It looks pretty good. You can fix simple errors like this, but you got to be careful, because the higher the quality of the ambient occlusion, the more pixels are going to be. This is based on a 2048 by 2048 UV set, so I had to go to multiply here, and it just got rid of all the white and just overlaid it, sort of like how they do comic strips, you know, layer it for the colors and shading and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this, because for some reason it just does not feel dark enough, and now I can get it darker. You know, I can even, you know, if I feel like it's too dark, I can drop the opacity of each level. If you want it kind of dingy and dark looking, like maybe it's just the game's atmosphere, you know, you can leave it up. And so what you'd probably do after that, once you're set up there, you would pretty much collapse the layers, you know, and then that's your texture. Now a few other textures I've been working on here, and I kind of made a really strong AO, but this game's going to be kind of dark. I'm adding decals underneath the windows, and I'm going to be working on making damage on the side of the model as well as in the texture so that it matches up, making it a little more dingy, old looking. So I also got this one here. It's really quick. I kind of used the same texture, but I moved it around, flipped it, and kind of sloppy job, but you get the idea. You can put this over a lot of textures that you create, and this as well as the normal bump, the AO. You basically make a complete map, and you just take it out and put it on your model. So another thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people are probably making these and then wondering, oh, why does it have a big seam? Well, you gotta know the tricks of making images seamless. Whether you're using Substance or not, or something else. You may do it by hand. I prefer to sometimes do it by hand. Just the artistry of that is just fun to do, and a lot of people they like to have a hand touch on things anyway. Even if you're using Substance Paint or a designer, you may want to do things by hand. So it's always good to learn that. So that's basically it. If you want to make a perfect AO, sometimes it's not always perfect, but you can get dang near close. And once you do it, it's going to make everything look way better. So for anybody that is new or people that know what this is already about, thanks for watching. Appreciate the support, and I'll catch you guys later.